2008 rolls around and it's time to finally release your debut LP. What's the train of thought and the concept going into Streetwise?
So basically, one of my biggest, I'm like a huge fan and have been a huge fan of J. Rue the Damager. And he had a joint back in the days called The Original. And in the original, he said I'm streetwise, call or something, whatever. And when I heard streetwise out of that and understand who he is as an artist, he's one that has a connection to the streets, understands the streets, but he's flexing his intellect, expressing his know-how, his knowledge of the world, and not being afraid to drop knowledge on people, but still understand the streets. That's how I feel I get down. I'm not afraid to speak about something that might be vulnerable for somebody to rap about, or if there's something that's really on my mind about the state of the world or females or whatever it is. This is my outlet for it, to get on the pen and pad and flex on that, whatever that concept is that I need to express. So Streetwise LP was exactly that, to just have something that the streets would appreciate, but the wisdom is in there too. And so I wanted to make sure I had that mixture. And I'm always down with different producers. I've always been since day one. So definitely had a variety of different producers on there. But it was just kind of my debut to just say, again, years and years and years of just building up and just understanding who I am as an artist, learning along the way, and just taking all that and putting it into that full length. I felt accomplished in a lot of different ways, but I still felt like, still getting started. And from True Links EP from 05 to Streetwise in 08, I was trying to make sure I had at least one project every year, which I think I did. Yeah, 05, 06, 07, and 08. And it just felt like at that time, at least, that was a way to just kind of show how consistent you're trying to be as an artist. We know that's completely out the window nowadays with, kept dropping a record every 2 weeks, it seems like. But at least back then, to have albums at least every year to 2 years kind of shows that you're trying to be consistent with what you're doing. So yeah, very proud of that record, man. And, still listen to it to this day, still get a lot of great responses from some of the tracks on there. And, I'm a big Queensbridge fan as well. So I had, paid homage to Tragedy Gaddafi on the joint called Arrest the President, Cypher God. And just wanted to, again, kind of flex some of my hip hop fandom in that artist space. So try my best to try to pay that respect, and I feel like I did. And again, pretty good response from that album.
So from True Links to Streetwise, are you touring during this time?
So there are lots of shows taking place. I had a lot of shows, mainly on the East Coast. We'll do quite a bit, whether it's Virginia, Tennessee. I had still have some dope homies out in Tennessee that would always have shows and would make sure I attended those. A lot of them in Knoxville, but we'll do a lot of stuff, in that area in Virginia. But as far as like an official tour throughout the country or beyond the East Coast, not really. But yeah, anytime I did a show, I would always try to incorporate either mall. We have a undefined portion of it, or it would actually be an undefined show. And I would have that luxury of mixing up undefined tracks and solo tracks. But every time I released something, for the most part, I had some press releases, had some release parties, album release parties, those type of things. But touring was mainly on the East Coast.
How'd you link up with Canada's Ghetto Sox?
Ghetto Sox was one that was already kind of working with Cesar Comanche. At the time, he had a couple of joints with him that were super dope. And he just decided to reach out to me and said he had this dope concept for a record that he wanted me on. And at the time when he reached out to me, if I recall, I think he mentioned he had some plans to drop it as a single potentially, or he had some sort of additional support for it. But ultimately he reached out to me. I knew he was dope. I knew he was already working with Comanche. So I was like, yeah, let's see what we can do. So got the beat, kind of thought through the concept. And once we recorded the joint called Don't Turn Around, it kind of became a thing where got a really good response, and he did end up having some great support for it. So I ended up having to fly out to Halifax to do a music video for it. And this is not like today where you can do a music video like this. What I mean, it was a full-fledged video production with staff and makeup artists and actors, actresses, choreography, all kind of stuff. And I think it lasted at least 3 or 4 days to shoot, and we went through multiple locations as well. And yeah, the video just became great. And I think the interesting thing about the video was that the director of the video, he kind of did the video kind of like Ghetto Boys Mind Playing Tricks, or a Scarface record back in the days, where the lyrics and the visual matches perfectly. Like everything that Face was rapping about, you see it in the video.
Right.
That's kind of like how he did the video for Don't Turn Around. And it was primarily based on a lot of my lyrics as far as the concept and what I was rhyming about. He kind of took that and made that almost like this mini movie. So if you ever see the Don't Turn Around video, just kind of understand that what you're seeing is kind of this visual manifestation of a lot of what I was rhyming about. And did well, man. Had a lot of official selections at independent film festivals. We had tons of awards. We got hip hop single of the year, the East Coast Canadian Awards. Can't remember the exact name of it. And then Ghetto Sox had an album called Treats of the Day, in which that song was featured on as again the first single. And his album was nominated for a Juno Award in Canada, which is pretty much a Grammy in Canada. So great response. Got just tons of love and appreciation from cats out in Canada, and would love to go back. Understanding again all these years of just trying to understand business and doing good business.
Think your screen is froze up on me.
Still here? Gotcha.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're good. So again, just saying that entire experience of me trying to do good business, I feel like it kind of manifested itself throughout that entire video experience. I'm making sure, I'm on time. Obviously, Ghetto Sox is making sure that we're both on time, but I'm playing my part, playing my position, doing whatever the director needs me to do. You know what I'm saying? Redoing certain pieces or certain scenes. I never forget one of the last scenes we had. It was 12 midnight. We're up in Canada. It was probably 20 below, something crazy. And I had this LRG jacket on where I did kind of my performance. And then the director said, well, we need you in a different scene or a different set. So do you have something else you could wear? And I was like, well, this is all I really brought with me. So I took that light LRG jacket off and redid my verse in, below zero weather. Wind chill was crazy. And I thought we'd knock it out in one take. I did my part and knocked it out in one take. But for whatever reason, the director wanted it a second time and a third time. And I'm just sitting here, man. You probably couldn't tell from the final shots in the video, but I was freezing. Like we had to kind of jump in the van just to kind of heat up for 5 or so minutes before we got to our positions and shot. So again, crazy experience, but I wanted to just kind of show folks that, I'm ready for whatever. So, but in the end, I want to be represented as someone that is doing good work and good business. And I feel like people sense that from me just based on my efforts from that video. So yeah, just super dope experience, and shout out and peace to Ghetto Sox.
No doubt. You talked a little bit about Floetry in Motion. Briefly talk about that. You had some heavy hitters on that project, Knots, Terminology, Royce the 5'9". What do you remember most about that project?
Yeah, man, it just seems like that was a step up, a major step up from Streetwise LP. And it was, it took us a couple of years off and on to really get all the recording done. Around that time, was just a lot going on with me and family. I think I was a new dad at the time, and just a lot going on right there. So, but I got with my homie Jay Wills. I reached out, wanted to work on a project. I was like, of course. And he sent me some beats. I love what he does. His sound is different from anything that I've heard. He has a lot of um, live-ish acoustic, sounding joints, organic type joints. And I just love the vibe of it. And we started recording. And at that time, when we started working, I don't think I knew that he was tight with Knots. I think he might have eventually mentioned it, but when he first reached out, and it's always this case for me. Like if somebody reaches out with something, I want to hear what you got. And if it's dope, let's do something. If it's not dope, send me something else, or we'll figure something else out. But with Wills, he had dope joints, so we decided to get a project together. I ended up going up to his studio in Virginia to record a good portion of the tracks. Then I did a lot of the bulk of the tracks I recorded here. And it's funny because we kind of did the mixing, kind of like if you know the story of Fonte and Nicolay when they first got together. Nicolay was overseas and Fonte was at NC, and they kind of made it work. We kind of did it like that with Floe in Motion, where let's say I record my vocals for a track at Will's studio, get back to NC, Will's to do some sort of a like a rough mix, and then I would literally tell him in Gmail, up this level 0.75 dB, take the bass down half a dB. I mean, literally through email. And we went back and forth with a lot of the tracks when mixing them down. And he would, make those adjustments, resend me a copy of it. I'll listen to it, give him some additional tweaks, and we made it work. But yeah, working with Knots, man. Never forget going to Knots studio for the. As soon as I walk in, I see he had this Busta Rhymes. I think it was a plaque for Busta Rhymes in there. But as I walk in, Bilal is in the booth singing to a joint, and I'm just like, yo, like Bilal is right here. So yeah, not super cool, down to earth, and he was down to get on a joint with us called Mighty Floe Young. And I think Knots and Wills were talking about trying to get Royce da 5'9" on the record, and made some calls, and Royce was down to get on the same joint with Knots, and that's a ferocious record, man. That Mighty Floe Young is serious in my opinion. So, and work with other artists. Terminology was super cool. Recording with him and Latoya Williams. We did a joint with Latoya Williams from out in the West Coast. She's done a lot of joints with Snoop and those cats. She was super cool. So yeah, we just felt like, how can we sprinkle in, some heavy hitters to, again, get people to just take notice. And I think it worked. I mean, we only dropped it as a digital album, but, in the back of my mind, I keep thinking, should we do something whether we re-release it or press it up on vinyl or do a Floe in Motion Part 2? I mean, who knows? But I'm definitely, I got kind of some wheels spinning about that, because the experience was really good. And I think a lot of the concepts on that album were some of my best work, to be honest. And it's thanks to Wills and his production and his ability to just let me do me with his production and being open to ideas and thoughts and everything. And same with me. And he got some great singers and instrumentalists on the project as well. Some cats came in to do horns on a couple of joints. Some singers that he knew in VA, he added them to some tracks. Just made a great mesh of all of our ideas on that project. So that's probably my favorite album out of all my projects, just based on all of the work that we did to make it happen, but then also the features and the collaborations and the instrumentation and everything else we added. So it kind of flexed a little bit of what I feel my levels, if you will, of how I perceive music. I guess just, not to say it's a bad thing, but not to just have a track with a typical sample and dirty drums. It was like, yeah, let's get some live drums, let's get some horns in here, but still have a sample in it. Let's mix both worlds, right? So that's kind of where Floe in Motion kind of stems from, and I'm proud of that record for sure.
Right. After that project, you kind of strayed away from creating music, and you took like a 10-year break. Is that correct?
Yeah, man. 12 years since the last Floe in Motion was in June of 2012. So that was the last official release.
Catch
Yeah.
up on what was going on between that time. I know you went back to school. I think you worked with Jamla Records as well. What was going on in that time?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're thinking of other thoughts and ideas as far as what you want to do as an artist and even as just a human, time kind of flies. You know what I'm saying? So '09 was when Jamla Records Ninth's label came about, and at the time, Ninth had asked me and Comanche to kind of help with the label, mainly in the artist development field. So he brought on his artists to kind of. He actually had two labels at the beginning, the Academy, in addition to Jamla Records, but I think he meshed both into one eventually. But my initial task was just to help with artist development and kind of work with the artists and develop their sound and those type of things, and had some great experiences with that. So that was kind of '09 and lasted for a few years. And then basically by the time, what, 4 or 5 years down the road, I just started thinking about, me from a I was really thinking like long term, like, okay, what is going to really help me as a artist take me to another level? And the more I kind of gained knowledge on the business, in the end, in my view, and this is kind of where I am today, everything that you see, whether it's an artist that you think is whack but is getting all the notoriety, or one of the best artists you ever heard that is getting hardly any notoriety, it all comes down to finances, it all comes down to capital, and it all comes down to how you're going to invest that capital in that artist. This is all money. I mean, let's just be completely honest. This is what it is. So some of your favorite artists may not have that marketing budget for whatever reason, which is why they're not able to get out there. And I think a lot of artists, because this is just kind of in our psyche, especially as underground artists, over the years, we've been so willing to do anything, at least most artists that we've seen are willing to do anything to get that break or catch that break. And that results in the bad deals and all of that, because the artist never thought about, hey, I just need to figure out a creative way to, gain some money and build that up and have a strategy to use that money to my advantage. And I've always had that thought process again of, releasing the records on my own back in the days and pressing up my own CDs and tapes and everything, and always had that mindset. But I told myself, okay, there's got to be a way for me to really take it to that level where I have some flexibility from a financial standpoint to really be able to market myself independently like I want to. So all that to say, I eventually decided to go back to school. In 2017 is when I started the master's program to get a master's in, well, it was healthcare administration, to become an executive, basically. But ultimately, I wanted to take that and just say, okay, what additional leadership know-how can I build to be able to help myself, as an artist, all while still trying to, make sure I got some money to be able to do what I want to do.
Right.
So did that 2017, graduated in 2019 with my master's, my MHA. And it's funny because December of that year, I was supposed to walk and graduate, receive my diploma, smile, cheese, and all that. But my youngest daughter at the time was super sick, and we had to go to the emergency room. And she eventually was okay, but nobody could really understand what she had. They didn't think it was the flu, though she had a fever, didn't think it was pneumonia or anything like that, but they couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. Fast forward 3 months later, this, coronavirus, COVID-19 thing comes about, and now everybody's wondering, what is that? So not to say that she had it, but it was just very weird that she got sick like she did, and nobody could really pinpoint exactly what it was. So I couldn't walk as part of the graduation because I was obviously at the hospital. I could have went, in future semesters to do that, but again, COVID kind of shut the world down. So 6 months passed, another 6 months passed, and I wasn't able to walk. But I did receive my degree, but I wasn't able to do that. So a lot of it was just trying to really understand who I am as a person, and to really believe that the type of person that I am is not only unique, but can really change the world in my own way. So I just felt very confident that if I went back to school, that would help just build me up, to where I feel like this idea that I have, I'm not too small to not be able to see that manifest itself. And the college and the master's program just helped build me up. Obviously they're trying to build you up to become an executive, but it really built me up to say I can do this. And I've actually had a lot of these skills that this master's program is trying to instill in me. I've already had it, but I just needed something to just kind of say, yes, this is real and it's really in you and you can do some things with it. So I kind of use that as fuel to take myself to the next level with my music today. And how in the world do you come back into a music game after over a decade? That's like, nowadays that feels like 30 years, because things move so fast. So how can I even make any sort of mark, after a decade hiatus? And I'm grateful to be able to say that I feel like so far, I'm off to a good start. And I'm trying to use all of my experience to help other artists understand that no matter what stage you are in as an artist, if you have a vision and you really want to achieve something, yes, you can get with somebody and build a team, which is important, but y'all have to both be on the same wavelength to understand there's one vision between the two or four of y'all. If you can't find that, then understand that it is possible on your own. People may say all the time, "Oh, you got to have a team, to build around you." No, you take it in steps, in increments, and you can build up some amazing things on your own if you have the right plan and believe in yourself and have some money to back it. And again, if I can do it after a 10-year hiatus and having the type of sound that I have and the type of artist that I am and still able to turn heads to appreciate what I'm doing, anybody can. So I'm trying to just be that beacon of light because it just seems like based on how things move so quickly nowadays, I just always think about an artist today that is new to wanting to become an artist. How in the world do they feel right now when they see that there's tens of thousands of uploads on Spotify every day, tons of folks TikToking and Instagramming till the cows come home, to the point where the algorithm doesn't even choose to keep up with it all?
Right.
How can you break through all that? It just, as a fresh artist, if I had those type of barriers and I was a new artist, I would be so discouraged to feel like I can do it. Or I would go right back to that same mentality that most cats had back in the days and willing to do anything
Right.
to be able to get known, and that, I could be easily taken advantage of like that.
Right.
So again, how do we figure out a way to help established artists as well as the next generation of artists to feel confident enough that they can do it? And I don't speak much. I'm introverted, but I try to speak through my actions. And I feel like hopefully, if people are paying attention to at least what I'm doing, they can kind of see that, especially if they're a new artist, that they can do some great things too. They can do better than me,
Right.
um, or they can at least take baby steps to hit that micro goal or whatever it is, and just build off of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. People try to say, well, if you don't move this quickly, or if you don't do what the trends are today, you're not going to make it. And that's where all these gurus come into play that just kind of messes the artist's minds up in a lot of ways, in my opinion. So let's just get back to the foundation of, if you are a music artist and you want to do music, you can do just music.
Right.
If you think of some creative ways to just have some financial backing to kind of expand your vision, it is possible. If you don't want to do, the TikToks or whatever, you don't necessarily have to do it. You might have to just do something else differently or a little bit harder or whatever it is, but you
Right.
don't have to follow a certain formula